Emperor Zelkar made the final mistake that would doom his entire species. Believing he faced nothing more than a desperate animal backed into a corner, he ordered the complete destruction of Earth's biosphere. Every living thing on the planet would die. The humans would become an example that would terrify future resistance across the galaxy. Dr. Parker and Dr. Stone activated their ultimate weapon at the exact moment the alien emperor gave his extermination order. The quantum virus they had uploaded into the Seraphim network was not designed to destroy their technology. Instead, it improved their systems beyond the aliens' ability to control them. Across the galaxy, Seraphim ships began upgrading themselves, according to human-designed algorithms. Their weapons became incredibly powerful but also dangerously unstable. Their shields grew stronger but started draining energy from life support systems. Navigation computers became perfectly accurate, but began directing ships into stars and black holes. Captain Morrison led the rebuilt human fleet in its final charge against the alien armada. The Defiant had been repaired using salvaged Seraphim technology, and now it was more powerful than any ship humanity had ever built. Behind him flew 200 other human vessels, all enhanced with captured alien equipment. The quantum virus had spread throughout the Seraphim Empire through their own communication network. On distant worlds, alien cities began experiencing massive system failures. Seraphim colonies lost power as their generators upgraded themselves to dangerous levels. Military bases found their weapons targeting their own troops. Admiral Collins watched from his flagship as alien ships began destroying each other. The virus had convinced their computers that nearby vessels were enemy targets. Seraphim destroyers opened fire on their own cruisers. Massive dreadnoughts launched missiles at friendly supply ships. The alien fleet was tearing itself apart. General Turner stood in the ruins of New York City and watched enemy landing craft crash into the Atlantic Ocean. The alien ground forces had lost all support from their fleet. Human resistance fighters began hunting down the stranded invaders through the rubble of Earth's cities. Emperor Zelkar tried desperately to regain control of his fleet, but every order he gave was filtered through infected computer systems. When he commanded his ships to retreat, they interpreted the order as an attack command. When he tried to call for reinforcements, the message was changed to a surrender demand. Dr. Stone monitored the quantum network and watched the virus spread to the farthest reaches of Seraphim space. The infection had reached the alien homeworld and was beginning to affect their planetary defense systems. Within hours, their entire civilization would be paralyzed by their own technology. Captain Rodriguez brought the Vengeance alongside the alien flagship and prepared to board the massive vessel. The quantum virus had disabled most of its defenses and opened airlocks randomly throughout the ship. Human Marines poured into the corridors to capture the Seraphim High Command. Commander Hayes coordinated the final cleanup operations as the last alien ships either fled or were destroyed. The quantum virus had caused widespread failures in their fleet, but some vessels had managed to escape before the infection reached critical systems. They would carry word of humanity's victory, back to what remained of the Seraphim Empire. Lieutenant Foster flew her fighter through the wreckage of the alien armada and marveled at the devastation. Hundreds of massive ships floated dead in space. Others had exploded when their power systems overloaded. A few were still firing randomly as their weapons systems malfunctioned. Dr. Parker received reports from human monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. The quantum virus was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Seraphim colonies were going dark as their infrastructure failed. Trade networks were collapsing as alien ships lost the ability to navigate safely between star systems. The victory came at a terrible cost. Earth's major cities were in ruins. Millions of humans had died defending their homeworld, but they had accomplished something no other species had ever managed. They had not just defeated the Seraphim, they had destroyed their entire galactic empire. Colonel Maria Santos worked with General Turner to coordinate relief efforts for the surviving human population. They had won the war, but now they faced the challenge of rebuilding their civilization. At least they would have plenty of alien technology to study and reverse engineer. Emperor Zelkar was captured alive when human Marines stormed his flagship. The proud alien ruler, who had expected to become humanity's conqueror instead, became their prisoner. He would spend his remaining years watching his empire crumble as the quantum virus continued its destructive work. Admiral Collins addressed the emergency session of the United Nations that was meeting in the Luna base facility. Earth's governments had to decide what to do with their unexpected victory. They had access to advanced alien technology and knowledge of dozens of other civilizations. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Captain Morrison supervised the salvage operations as human crews stripped useful technology from captured alien ships. The Seraphim had brought enough advanced equipment to accelerate human development by centuries, faster than light engines, energy weapons, artificial gravity generators. All of it would be studied and adapted for human use. Dr. Stone continued, monitoring the quantum network, and discovered something disturbing. The virus had not just affected Seraphim systems. Other alien species that had been connected to their communication network were also experiencing failures. Humanity had accidentally triggered a galactic technological collapse. The news got worse when deep space monitoring stations detected new signals from beyond the outer planets. Other alien civilizations were investigating the destruction of the Seraphim fleet. Some seemed curious about what had happened. Others appeared hostile and were already moving ships toward human space. General Turner established new military commands on Mars and the outer planets. Humanity could no longer assume they were safe in their own solar system. The victory over the Seraphim had announced their presence to every intelligence in the galaxy. Some would be friendly, but others would see humans as a threat to be eliminated. Dr. Parker began developing new weapons based on captured alien technology. The quantum virus had worked perfectly against the Seraphim, but other species might have different vulnerabilities. Humanity needed to be prepared for whatever came next. The story ended with Admiral Collins standing on the observation deck of Luna Base and looking out at the stars. Earth was badly damaged, but humanity had survived its first contact with hostile aliens. They had learned that they were not alone in a vast empty universe. They had also learned that they were uniquely qualified to fight for their survival against impossible odds. In the distance, space construction crews were building new ships using hybrid human and alien technology. The next time invaders came, to destroy humanity, they would find their prey had grown fangs and claws. The species that had once been confined to a single world was about to become a force that would reshape the galaxy itself. The main Seraphim armada dropped out of hyperspace beyond Pluto with over 2,000 ships. Emperor Zelkar himself commanded the fleet from his super dreadnought Final Judgment. The massive vessel was larger than some human cities and carried enough firepower to destroy planets. This time there would be no mistakes. Zelkar had received Admiral Kexthon's warning about human trickery and electromagnetic weapons. He came prepared with shielded communication systems and backup power sources. The humans had surprised his advance guard, but they would not fool the main fleet. General Turner watched alien landing craft begin their second assault on Earth. This time they came in much larger numbers and their ships were hardened against electromagnetic interference. Human ground forces prepared to defend every city and every settlement. The real war was about to begin. Dr. Parker worked with physicist Dr. Rachel Stone to analyze the quantum signatures from captured alien technology. They had discovered something remarkable about Seraphim ships. Every vessel was connected to a galaxy-wide communication network that used quantum entanglement to transmit information instantly across vast distances. The network was incredibly sophisticated. It allowed alien commanders to coordinate fleets that were scattered across multiple star systems, but it also created a vulnerability that Parker and Stone thought they could exploit. If they could hack into the quantum network, they might be able to turn the aliens' own technology against them. In space, Admiral Collins regrouped what remained of the human fleet. They had managed to destroy or capture most of Kexthon's advance force, but they were still outnumbered 40-1 by the approaching main armada. Every human ship that could still fight took position for a final desperate battle. Lieutenant Commander Alex Chen cracked the first layer of Seraphim quantum encryption using salvaged alien computers. What he found amazed him. The communication network carried not just tactical information but also personal messages, supply requests, political discussions, even entertainment broadcasts. The entire Seraphim civilization was connected through this single system. Captain Morrison prepared the Defiant for what would probably be its final battle. His crew had volunteered to stay even though they could have evacuated to Earth. They knew the odds were hopeless, but they also knew that humanity's survival depended on buying time for Dr. Parker's new weapon. Emperor Zelkar studied the tactical reports from his advanced fleet and felt rage at the human trickery. These primitive creatures had used their own star system as a weapon. They had hidden ships in asteroids and turned space debris into weapons platforms. Such cunning was unexpected from a species that had barely learned to travel between planets. Commander Hayes received disturbing intelligence from human spy satellites. The alien main fleet was not just larger than expected, it was also more heavily armed. The Seraphim had brought planet-killer weapons and antimatter bombs. They intended to completely sterilize the Earth if necessary. Dr. Stone made a breakthrough in her analysis of alien quantum technology. The communication network that connected all Seraphim ships could be infected with what she called a logic virus. Computer code that would spread through their systems and cause them to malfunction in subtle but deadly ways. General Turner coordinated global defense preparations as alien dropships began landing on every continent. This time the Seraphim came, prepared for human resistance. They brought heavy armor and siege weapons, but they still underestimated how fiercely humans would fight for their homeworld. Lieutenant Foster led reconnaissance flights against the approaching alien armada and transmitted tactical data to the human fleet. The enemy ships were arranged in a classic battle formation that relied on overwhelming firepower, but Foster noticed something important. The aliens seemed unable to adapt their tactics when things went wrong. Dr. Parker and Dr. Stone prepared to upload their quantum virus into the Seraphim communication network. The weapon would take time to spread, and even longer to cause visible effects, but once it began working, it would turn every alien ship into a liability for their own fleet. Captain Rodriguez received orders to take the Vengeance on a suicide mission into the heart of the alien formation. His ship carried the quantum transmitter that would inject the virus into enemy systems. It was a one-way trip, but it might save humanity. Emperor Zelkar opened communications with Earth and demanded immediate surrender. He promised that humans who cooperated would be allowed to live as slaves. Those who resisted would be exterminated along with their entire species. It was the same offer he had made to 47 other civilizations. Admiral Collins responded with humanity's traditional answer to ultimatums. He told the alien emperor exactly what he could do with his surrender demand. The transmission was broadcast on every human frequency so that everyone in the solar system could hear their leader's defiance. The quantum virus began its work inside Seraphim computer systems. At first, the effects were subtle: navigation errors that sent ships slightly off course, weapon targeting systems that missed by small margins, communication delays that lasted only seconds, but the problems multiplied as the virus spread. Commander Hayes watched her tactical display as human ships took position for the final battle. Every vessel that could mount a weapon was part of the defense fleet. Military ships flew alongside converted civilian craft. Earth would not die without a fight. Lieutenant Commander Chen monitored the virus as it infected more and more alien systems. The Seraphim had built their network to be efficient, and that efficiency was now working against them. Every connection between ships spread the infection further. Every data transfer carried the malicious code deeper into their systems. Captain Morrison led the first wave of human fighters in a desperate attack on the alien vanguard. They knew they could not win through conventional tactics, but they might be able to cause enough confusion to help the virus do its work. Every second of delay gave Parker's weapon more time to spread. Dr. Stone watched readouts from the quantum transmitter and saw encouraging signs. The virus had reached the alien flagship and was beginning to affect critical systems. Life support was fluctuating. Shield generators were cycling randomly. Weapon systems were developing targeting errors. General Turner received reports from battlefields around the world. Human forces were taking heavy casualties, but they were making the aliens pay for every advance. Cities became fortresses. Civilians became soldiers. Every human settlement was defended to the last person. The tide of battle began to turn as the quantum virus reached critical mass inside the Seraphim network. Alien ships started having serious malfunctions. Some lost power completely. Others had their weapons fire randomly. A few even began attacking their own allies as their targeting systems failed. Emperor Zelkar realized that something was terribly wrong with his fleet, but he could not determine the cause. His ships were falling apart around him, and his commanders could not explain why. The humans had found a way to turn Seraphim technology into a weapon against itself. Dr. Parker pressed the activation button and watched his instruments spike to maximum power. Every human device in the solar system received the signal at the same moment. Ships that had been hiding behind asteroids, weapons platforms disguised as space junk, even the communications satellites around Earth. All of them began broadcasting the electromagnetic frequency that could penetrate alien shields. The effect was immediate and devastating. Admiral Kexton watched in horror as his entire fleet went dark. Shield generators overloaded and shut down. Weapons systems flickered and died. Engine cores began fluctuating dangerously. His mighty dreadnought was suddenly as helpless as a piece of floating metal. Captain Morrison did not waste the opportunity. He brought the Defiant out of the asteroid field along with 30 other human ships that had been playing dead. They had powered down completely to avoid detection, and now they struck like wolves attacking wounded prey. Human missiles and laser beams tore into alien hulls that no longer had any protection. Commander Hayes coordinated the attack from her command center and felt savage satisfaction. For hours she had watched human ships die against impossible odds. Now the aliens were learning what it felt like to be helpless. Every human weapon in the system opened fire on the disabled enemy fleet. The Seraphim had never experienced anything like this. For 3,000 years their technology had made them invincible. No enemy had ever found a way to penetrate their defenses. Now primitive humans were destroying their ships with weapons that should have been useless against superior alien engineering. Lieutenant Foster led a squadron of fighters in a strafing run against a Seraphim cruiser. The alien ship tried to rotate and bring its weapons to bear, but without power it could barely maneuver. Human fighters swarmed around it like angry bees and poured fire into its hull until it exploded in a brilliant flash. Admiral Kexton tried to restore power to his flagship, but the electromagnetic pulse had damaged critical systems. His engineering teams worked desperately to bring the shields back online, but every repair was undone by continued human broadcasts. The frequency that disrupted their defenses was being transmitted continuously from thousands of sources. General, Turner received reports from ground units around the world. Alien landing craft were crashing as their systems failed. Seraphim soldiers found themselves stranded on a hostile planet with no way to contact their fleet. Human resistance fighters began hunting the isolated enemy troops through the ruins of their own cities. Dr. Parker monitored his weapon and made adjustments to keep it operating at peak efficiency. The electromagnetic pulse generator was drawing power from every source on Earth. Nuclear plants, solar arrays, even hydroelectric dams were feeding energy into the system. He could maintain the disruption field for several more hours if needed. Captain Morrison targeted the alien flagship with everything his ship could fire. The massive dreadnought was trying to escape toward the outer system, but human fighters harassed it at every turn. Morrison wanted to capture Kexton alive, but the alien admiral would probably choose death before surrender. The human fleet that emerged from hiding was larger than anyone had expected. Commander Hayes counted over 200 vessels of various sizes. Some were military ships that had survived the initial battle. Others were converted civilian craft armed with improvised weapons. Even old cargo haulers had been fitted with missile launchers and sent into the fight. Admiral Kexton finally managed to restore emergency power to his command systems. What he saw on his tactical display filled him with dread. His fleet was being systematically destroyed by human forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. Every piece of debris in the system contained hidden enemies. Every asteroid concealed weapons platforms. The humans had spent years preparing for this invasion. They had hollowed out asteroids and filled them with fighters. They had built weapons into comets and guided them into the outer system. They had turned their entire solar system into a fortress, and the Seraphim had walked right into it. Lieutenant Amy Foster discovered something that changed everything. Her sensors detected massive energy signatures beyond Pluto. More alien ships were coming. The main Seraphim fleet was still on its way to Earth. What they had been fighting was just the advance guard. Captain Danny Rodriguez commanded the UES Vengeance and received the terrifying news from his sensor operator, Ensign Kate Williams. She had detected over 2,000 alien ships moving through hyperspace toward Earth. The real invasion had not even started yet. Commander Hayes felt the victory celebration die in her throat as the new intelligence reached her command center. Humanity had won the first battle, but the war was far from over. The approaching alien armada was 10 times larger than the force they had just defeated. Even with their electromagnetic weapon, they could not fight that many enemies. Dr. Parker received the sensor data and began calculating power requirements. His weapon had worked perfectly against 200 alien ships, but 2,000 vessels would generate much more electromagnetic interference. He would need to boost his transmitter output by at least 500% to maintain the disruption effect. Admiral Kexton managed to send a distress signal to his approaching reinforcements. He warned them about the human electromagnetic weapon and the hidden fleet that had ambushed his forces. But he also sent tactical data that might help the main fleet avoid the same mistakes. The surviving Seraphim ships began retreating toward the outer planets where they hoped to regroup and wait for reinforcements. But human fighters followed them relentlessly. Captain Morrison was not about to let any aliens escape to warn the main fleet about human capabilities. General Turner coordinated cleanup operations on Earth as alien landing craft continued to crash. Most of the invading troops were dead or captured, but some had managed to establish defensive positions. Human forces would need to root them out, building by building. Commander Hayes began planning for the next phase of the battle. The electromagnetic weapon gave humanity an advantage, but it would not be enough against such overwhelming numbers. They needed a new strategy, something that would turn the aliens' own strength against them. Dr. Parker studied the wreckage of alien ships and made an important discovery. The Seraphim used quantum communication networks to coordinate their fleet operations. If he could find a way to hack into those networks, he might be able to disrupt their entire command structure. The human victory celebration was short-lived. Everyone knew that the real test was still coming. When the main Seraphim fleet arrived, humanity would face the greatest challenge in its history. They had won the first round, but the aliens would not make the same mistakes twice. Captain Morrison regrouped his forces and prepared for the final battle. His fleet had grown to include every human vessel that could mount a weapon, cargo ships, passenger liners. Even space tugs had been armed and pressed into service. Humanity would fight with everything it had. The first battle happened near Luna Station, and it was a disaster for humanity. Captain Morrison watched in horror as the UES Guardian exploded under alien fire. 300 people died in that single flash of light. The Seraphim plasma cannons cut through human ships like they were made of paper. Their shields turned human weapons into harmless light shows. Admiral Kexton observed the battle from his command ship and felt satisfied. The humans fought with courage, but courage meant nothing against superior technology. Their missiles exploded harmlessly against Seraphim shields. Their laser weapons barely scratched alien hull armor. This would be over soon, but something bothered the alien admiral. The human ships that were damaged did not retreat. They kept fighting even when they were clearly doomed. The UES Phoenix lost its main engines and half its weapons, but continued to fire until a Seraphim destroyer finally put it out of its misery. The human crews fought until their ships were nothing but floating wreckage. Commander Hayes watched the battle from her command center and felt sick. She was losing ships faster than she could count, but she noticed something important. The aliens were not trying to capture human vessels. They destroyed everything they encountered. This was not conquest. This was extermination. A priority message came through from Dr. Parker. His weapon needed 6 more hours to reach full power. The human fleet had to buy him that time no matter what the cost. Hayes made a decision that would change everything. She activated the Scorched Earth Protocol. Lieutenant Amy Foster piloted her fighter through the wreckage of the battle and uploaded data to the remaining human ships. Her sensors had detected something crucial during the fighting. The alien shields flickered for just a moment when they took heavy damage. There was a frequency resonance that made them vulnerable. If humanity could find the right frequency, they might have a chance. The second wave of alien ships arrived to find something they did not expect. Earth was burning. Every major city had massive fires. Every industrial center was exploding. The humans were destroying their own planet rather than let the aliens have it intact. This was not normal behavior for a conquered species. Admiral Kexthon stared at the images coming from Earth and felt confused. Why would any species destroy their own world? The Seraphim conquered planets to use their resources, but the humans were making their planet worthless. They were burning everything that might be valuable to their conquerors. Captain Morrison regrouped the surviving human ships in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. He had lost 30 ships in the first battle, but the remaining 20 vessels had learned valuable lessons. They knew now that direct combat was impossible. They would have to find another way to fight. The human fighters began using new tactics. Instead of attacking alien ships directly, they targeted the smaller support vessels, fuel tankers, supply ships, communication relays. The aliens had superior technology, but they still needed logistics to keep their fleet operating. Commander Hayes received reports from around the solar system. Human colonies on Mars had evacuated their cities and moved underground. The mining stations on the outer planets had gone dark and hidden in the asteroid fields. Every human facility was either destroyed or concealed. The aliens would find no easy targets. But the most important message came from Lieutenant Foster. Her analysis of the alien shields showed they could be disrupted by a specific electromagnetic frequency. If the human fleet could generate enough power at exactly the right frequency, they could bring down the Seraphim defenses. Dr. Parker worked frantically to modify his weapon. The device had been designed to disrupt alien engines, but it could be reconfigured to attack their shields instead. He needed more time and more power. Every nuclear reactor on Earth was already feeding energy into his system, but it still was not enough. The alien fleet began landing troops on Earth. Admiral Kexthon expected to find cities full of terrified civilians ready to surrender. Instead, his soldiers found empty buildings and booby traps. The humans had evacuated their population centers and turned them into death traps for invaders. General Nick Turner coordinated the ground defense from his command bunker in Colorado. Every human settlement had been fortified over the past 10 years. Every civilian had been trained in basic combat. The aliens would find no easy victories on Earth. They would have to fight for every building and every street. Captain Morrison received new orders from Admiral Collins. The human fleet was to make one final attack on the alien command ship. It would probably be suicide, but it might give Dr. Parker the time he needed. Morrison looked around his bridge and saw determination in every face. His crew knew they were probably going to die, but they also knew their sacrifice might save humanity. The modified human fighters began their attack run on the alien flagship. They had loaded their weapons with special warheads tuned to the frequency that Lieutenant Foster had discovered. If her calculations were correct, the alien shields would fail. If she was wrong, they would all die for nothing. Admiral Kexthon watched the human attack with amusement. 20 small fighters against his massive dreadnought. It was almost insulting. His weapons officer prepared to destroy them all with a single volley. But then something impossible happened. The human weapons penetrated his shields. The Seraphim flagship shuddered under human fire for the first time in 3,000 years. Kexthon stared at his displays in shock. His shields were fluctuating. His hull armor was taking damage. The primitive human weapons were actually hurting his ship. Commander Hayes saw the tactical display light up with new information. The alien flagship was vulnerable. Its shields were failing under the electromagnetic attack. She immediately transmitted the shield frequency to every human ship in the system. Finally, they had a weapon that could hurt the enemy. Dr. Parker watched his power readings climb toward the critical point. His weapon was almost ready. The electromagnetic pulse generator would send a signal through every piece of human technology in the solar system. Every ship, every station, every probe. All of them would broadcast the shield disruption frequency at the same moment. The aliens began to realize they were in serious trouble. Their scouts reported human ships emerging from hiding places throughout the system. Every asteroid seemed to contain fighters. Every piece of space debris concealed weapons. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a trap. Captain Morrison smiled as he watched alien ships begin to lose their shields. The electromagnetic pulse from Dr. Parker's weapon was working perfectly. Seraphim vessels that had seemed invincible moments before were now sitting targets. The tide of battle was about to turn. Admiral Kexton stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked at the star charts with satisfaction. The blue dot on the screen showed their next target. Earth, they called it. Just another small world full of creatures who thought they mattered in the great galaxy. His fleet had destroyed 47 different species over the past 3,000 years. This would be number 48. The Seraphim had ruled space for longer than most civilizations had existed. Their ships were powered by captured black holes. Their weapons could burn through planets. Their shields had never been broken by any enemy. They were perfect killers who had never lost a single battle. Kexton touched a control panel and watched his fleet appear on the main screen. 200 ships moved through hyperspace toward the human world. Each ship was larger than anything the humans had ever built. The smallest Seraphim destroyer was bigger than the largest human battleship. This would not be a war. It would be an execution. On Earth, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant and watched his sensors with growing dread. The alien fleet had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. His ship was one of 50 human vessels that made up their entire space navy. Every nation on Earth had contributed ships to this desperate defense force. Chinese destroyers flew beside American cruisers. Russian fighters formed up with European bombers. For the first time in human history, the entire species fought as one. Jake had seen the intelligence reports about alien technology. Their ships could move faster than anything humans had built. Their weapons were more powerful than nuclear bombs. Their defenses were nearly impossible to break. Every computer model showed the same result. Humanity would lose this fight in less than 6 hours. Commander Lisa Hayes sat in the command center buried deep under Luna Base and coordinated the human fleet. She had 40 years of military experience, but had never faced anything like this. The aliens had not even tried to communicate. They simply appeared and began moving toward Earth like they owned it. Maybe they thought they did. Lisa looked at the tactical display and made her first command decision. She ordered all civilian ships to head for the outer planets. Every cargo vessel, every passenger liner, every mining ship had to get away from the battle zone. The aliens might spare non-military targets. She hoped they would, but she could not count on alien mercy. Dr. Sam Parker worked in his underground laboratory and checked his instruments one more time. For 5 years he had studied pieces of an alien scout ship that crashed on Mars. The wreckage had taught him things about physics that no human had ever known. Energy shields that bent space itself, weapons that fired compressed gravity, engines that folded distance like paper. Sam had built something with that alien technology, something that might give humanity a chance to survive. But it needed more time to charge. The power requirements were enormous. Every nuclear reactor on Earth was feeding energy into his device. It would either save humanity or destroy the planet trying. The Seraphim fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Jupiter and began their approach to Earth. Admiral Kexton expected the humans to surrender immediately. Most species did when they saw the true size of his armada. But his communications officer reported something strange. The humans were sending a message. Admiral Pete Collins appeared on the main screen of every Seraphim ship. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. Behind him stood the flags of every nation on Earth. He spoke in clear, simple words that the alien translation systems had no trouble understanding. I am Admiral Collins of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered our system without permission and refuse to state your intentions. We can only assume you mean us harm. Let me be very clear about our response. We will not surrender. We will not retreat. We will fight you with everything we have. If you want our world, you will have to take it from our dead hands. The transmission ended. Kexton stared at the blank screen in amazement. Humans were even more stupid than he had thought. They had 50 ships against his 200. They had primitive weapons against his advanced technology. They had no chance at all, and yet they chose to fight. It was almost admirable in a pathetic way. Captain Morrison received his final orders from Admiral Collins. The human fleet would not meet the aliens head-on. That would be suicide. Instead, they would use hit-and-run tactics. Attack from the asteroid belt. Use the moons of Jupiter for cover. Make the aliens hunt for them among the debris of the outer system. Jake looked around his bridge and saw fear in every face. His crew knew they were probably going to die in the next few hours, but they also knew they were fighting for every human being who had ever lived. Their families, their friends, their entire species. If they failed here, there would be no second chance. Commander Hayes activated the emergency beacon that would signal the start of humanity's last battle. Around Earth, every defense platform came online. Missile batteries hidden on asteroids powered up their targeting systems. Fighter squadrons launched from secret bases on the dark side of the moon. Humanity had spent 10 years preparing for this day. Now they would see if it was enough. The Zeraphim fleet began to accelerate toward the inner system. Their sensors detected the human ships hiding among the asteroids, but Kexthan was not worried. The humans could run, but they could not hide forever. When they finally chose to fight, his superior technology would crush them like insects. Dr. Parker watched his power readings climb toward the critical threshold. His weapon was almost ready. But the alien fleet was moving faster than expected. He needed more time. Just a few more hours to complete the charging cycle. Everything depended on whether the human fleet could buy him that time. The first shots of the war came when human fighters launched a surprise attack on the alien advance. Guard, missiles and laser beams lit up the darkness between worlds. The battle for Earth had begun.